How many times have you opened the tap to fill, say, a cup of water and found that the water coming out is pure white? Many people, upon encountering this white color, leave the water to sit for a while until it turns transparent before drinking it. If you ask them why they do this, they might say it's to allow the chlorine to evaporate. The important thing is that this white color has nothing to do with chlorine or any such chemical. It is due to the oxygen bubbles created by the pressure difference in the water pipes. However, the water actually does contain chlorine. In its gaseous state, chlorine is toxic. But in its liquid state, it is used for disinfection. If you smell it, you might still cough, and your eyes and nostrils could be irritated. Why did water companies start adding it to drinking water, and how did they come up with this idea? Also, how is it that drinking chlorinated water doesn't harm us? Welcome. Before we start, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell so you'll be notified of our videos. Before addressing the many questions about chlorine and water, let's travel back in time. Ancient Greek and Indian writings from around 2000 BC refer to methods for treating water. These methods involved boiling drinking water and filtering it through sand and gravel. For many years, people did not add anything else to the water until 1500 BC, when the ancient Egyptians discovered the principle of coagulation and introduced the idea of adding chemicals to water for purification. They used a substance called alum to help collect impurities and small particles that were hard to filter out with sand and gravel. This method was recorded on the walls of the tombs of Amenhotep II and Ramses II, and has been used as a key step in water purification to this day. If we look at Greek civilization, which relied on boiling and filtration for water purification, we find that about 500 years later, they began using filters discovered by the Greek philosopher Apgarat. These filters were bag-like, very fine pores that allowed water to pass through while trapping anything that affected its taste and smell. Over time, developments were made in transporting water for agriculture, and purification channels were established. The situation persisted until an unexpected event occurred: epidemics. The cholera epidemic spread across the world, and its cause was not known until 1854. Scientists discovered that cholera spread rapidly through water. One important observation was that the epidemic spread more slowly in areas using water filters. British scientist John Snow discovered that the pollution of water pumps with sewage was the cause. He decided to disinfect the pump with chlorine, which is a disinfectant, and then restart it. After disinfection, the water from the pump had no taste or smell and was very normal. From then on, we began to rely on chlorine, and diseases transmitted by water, such as typhoid and cholera, became less common and were in countries without such water treatment techniques. The scientific community has conducted extensive research to ensure that chlorine is effective in treating and disinfecting water. Chlorination's main advantage is its effectiveness against bacteria and viruses. When chlorine enters the water, it reacts with water molecules to form hypochlorous acid or hypochlorite ions. These ions penetrate the cell membranes of viruses or bacteria, destroying them. Once the cell membrane is damaged or weakened, it disrupts the cell's respiration and DNA activity, leading to the death of the virus or bacteria and leaving the water almost free of diseases. A common concern is whether the chlorine that destroys cells in the water will affect us. Chlorine added to water is the same as the chlorine used for cleaning, but in much lower concentrations. The recommended concentration globally is 4 milligrams per liter, which is safe for human consumption. Although some studies suggest that chlorine can react with organic substances in water, form potentially carcinogenic byproducts, the Environmental Protection Agency requires regular monitoring of these levels and immediate action if they rise. The only possible danger from chlorine in water is for people very sensitive to it, who might experience skin irritation or asthma symptoms. However, this is rare, and those affected usually switch to water filters that remove chlorine. If you haven't noticed any issues, there's no cause for concern. An important note before we finish: if you sometimes taste or smell chlorine in the water, it's because the treatment systems are still adding it. This taste and smell should diminish over time. If it bothers you, you can let the water sit for a while before drinking it. But even if you don't, it's not dangerous due to the safe concentration of chlorine. Chlorination is not the only process used. For example, in Egypt, water enters large basins directly from the Nile River and is transferred to water treatment. The first step is filtering to remove solid impurities like leaves or garbage. The next step is flocculation, where chemicals like alum are added to help settle smaller particles. Following this, we use filtration to ensure no sediments remain, and finally, chlorine sterilization is applied. All these processes are monitored to ensure successful purification. In cases of highly polluted wells, other methods like ultraviolet disinfection or reverse osmosis are used. These methods are more costly, but are effective in eliminating parasites and contaminants. That's it for today. If you've made it this far, you're the best. Give us a like before you leave so we know how many of you reached the end of the video. Don't forget to write any questions or confusions you have in the comments so we can answer them. Many of our upcoming topics will come from your question.